Hello, my name is Jack Stanley, and I'm the co-founder of the Tech Academy. I'd like to welcome you to the Tech Academy podcast. The Tech Academy operates a 15-week software developer bootcamp. You can find out more at our website, learncodinganywhere.com.
Our guest on the podcast today is Matt McLuckie. We had a great conversation about onboarding, mentoring, working with developers, and the technology industry in general. I think you'll enjoy it. He was a really interesting guest. So you mentioned you moved around a lot when you were younger. Military background or just like parents?
My father was in the military, was in the Navy, and then later I became a professor, and he moved around from university to university as well too. So, he went on lectures often. So,
was he an officer?
He was an officer in the Navy and such, and then when he got out of the Navy and such, he went into academia basically.
Okay.
So
I did 6 years in the Navy as a electronics technician and nuclear reactor operator, like
excellent,
flat out nerd. But I wasn't enlisted. I wasn't an officer. You know, what was his discipline? What did he do when he was in the service?
So he did a lot of teaching actually. So he said a lot of times people that need to learn, typical industrial engineering types of things. So you teach those topics, and so
to Navy guys,
and
pretty good students in my experience. That's where I started learning that I really like teaching. They're like.
They might sit in the very back, and they might give you a hard time, but they are listening, and they are trying to understand. So,
That's funny.
Yeah, my father's got lots of good stories about that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Excellent. Did you ever contemplate going into service yourself?
Yeah, unfortunately, when they found out I had asthma, they didn't care what to talk to me anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
We had a fellow that went all the way through the nuclear power program, which is 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And rigorous academic program. Finally gets to the station on a boat out of Bremerton, Washington, and is seasick 24 hours a day for about 42 or 43 days straight.
Ugh.
Loses almost 35 pounds, and I guess you're not going to be in the Navy anymore. Kind of, I'm sure the Navy wished they tested that ahead of time. Put him out on a boat for a few weeks and see what happens. Because I haven't figured out the cost, but 2 years of training a nuclear reactor operator can't be cheap.
Yeah.
So, tell me about your company. What do you do? How do you help people?
Sure. So the company I work for now is comScore, and basically what we do is we essentially provide TV ratings and such to go and help different companies have good advertising programs that meet the demographics they're after, essentially. And so that's what we kind of focus on in that company. Yeah,
connecting to the audience is obviously a very, very critical thing for any business. You think about something as large scale as TV, you got to have a specific technology for it.
Sure.
We're concerned with the same thing here, making sure is our advertising effective, or we're reaching people that this is genuinely be something that would help them. I'm curious about that. Do you guys factor in binge watching and streaming and a lot of the on-demand things?
Yes. Yeah. So we of course get the traditional telecast information, so that's from traditional TV, but we also include video on demand and also do web metrics, which is for the content online as well too. And so we have kind of covered the whole broad spectrum of communication essentially.
Okay.
So
we were talking earlier about the different podcasts that we like to listen to, and one of the common laments on this Nerdist podcast I listen to is from industry professional entertainment guys and girls is that industry, television at least, really has not moved forward enough in terms of being able to validate what the actual penetration or popularity of a show is, or of a performer, because of all the different ways that we can consume media nowadays.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of heartening to hear, because these podcasts I'm listening to from the period of 2012 through 2014, 2015, it sounds like, at least at your company, I'm trying to get with the program or come into the current year.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long have you been there?
I've only been there about I'd say about 8 months now. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you worked in technology in Oregon since you got done with college?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For the last 25 years, I've been in different companies and such. I spent a long time at WebMD, which is a big company here. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. About 13 years there, and then I've worked for Cambia Health Solutions before in the past. And
is WebMD, they're primarily a .NET shop?
They are a .NET shop, yes.
Microsoft-centric, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was kind of interesting because now I'm working in open source technologies now.
You are?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you like that?
So, I like open source technologies. I really like a lot of the flexibility we get into it. It's not a heavy framework. Get a lot of ability to choose your own options of what you want to use for different, like the package managers and whatever else you want to use and such. You aren't forced into one way of thinking, essentially. And so I like it, actually.
Do you find that the team, like what's that process like for you of the team agreeing upon a tool to use, for example?
Yeah, so when it comes to tools and technologies, it's kind of funny because we just went and switched to Angular not too long ago.
Yeah, okay. 2.0?
Yeah, Angular 2.0,
Yeah, okay.
actually. So actually now it's what we started with saying 2.0. Now we're actually on the Angular 4.0, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so most current version.
What day of the week is it?
Yeah. Well, 5.0 is right around the corner, too. So it's interesting. So basically, you look for open source technologies that are at high adoption at this point. So things that have, a mature technology itself, and it's been being used by quite a few people. It's got an active population that's actually contributing regularly, regular updates, regular releases. And it's got support from good name companies and such. Like Angular, for example, is a big supporter is Google, for example. And then, of course, all the positives you're looking for technology, including being cloud-based, being high-performance, scalable, and all those things and such. And so we got a pretty good stack right now between Angular and Node, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, I did a consulting project a few years ago with that exact stack, but in the middle of it, they made the big jump from about Angular 1.3 to 2.0, and that discussion of whether or not to jump is like we ultimately did not jump. We stayed.
That's
with
interesting.
It. Yeah. And it's always difficult when you're relying on someone else to make code for you. You
Absolutely.
know, but it's almost impossible nowadays not to have some element of that.
Absolutely.
In your applications,
Yeah, it was interesting. I actually worked for Mentaltoad for a while, and you know Mentaltoad? Awesome. And what was great about that experience was got just lots of different technologies there, essentially in terms of .NET, other open source technologies.
Oh, yeah.
Anything, they'll do anything, mobile development, and so so that was a great experience as well.
Yeah, we've had some folks from Mentaltoad speak here before, and just in terms of I'm a senior software developer all the way, primarily help run the school now, right?
Sure.
Like the respect that they have out in the field amongst other developers.
Oh, yeah,
and
they're a great company.
Firms, like, fantastic.
Yeah,
It's
excellent
really
company. Yeah.
So, wow. What kind of degree did you get when you went to school?
Computer science.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I went back for an MBA later. Yeah.
I'm curious about that intersection of being a working software developer with a computer science background, and only because I don't have one. My technology education came from being a nerd in high school, like hardcore, and from the Navy, which if they had to educate you to be able to handle any type of technology you might possibly find out in the fleet. So you had to handle computers really well.
Yeah,
but I don't have
military
that.
backgrounds are always positive in that regard.
Yeah,
because they're really well trained, really well disciplined, and such. And so I've been very pleased ones I've worked with at least.
Yeah,
so.
well, it had to be practical knowledge, and they could only go into theory so much before they really well, here's how to actually do it, what you have to fix when you're out in the field and all that kind of stuff. But I've just been curious, when you first entered the workforce, were you a working software developer right off the bat, or do you have a different kind of role? What was that like?
Yeah, I was working software right off the bat, actually, and that was kind of the reason why I kind of care a lot about newbies coming in and out in the programs, because we don't do a good job of getting them up to speed on how to work in a software shop very much. And so it's one thing that I concentrate to do is when I take a new person in is try and make sure they understand how to work in the environment and what things they need to watch out for.
How do you approach that?
So basically what I typically will do is first go over the job description with them, essentially. So make sure they have a clear understanding of what I expect from them and what it takes to get to the next level, essentially, as a software developer, where the skills I'm looking for you to grow in and such. Okay. So have clear expectations, because you can't really go ahead and rate someone later on if you haven't told them what you're supposed to be rated on. And then, of course, then you look at the CK now, how familiar are you with the technologies that we use? So if you're not very familiar with Angular, for example, well, then I might go through an online Angular course and such. Or if you're not familiar with TypeScript, same thing.
Yeah. You're using TypeScript?
Use TypeScript, yes.
Oh, cool.
Strong type languages I am in favor of.
I am too.
Yes, so, yeah.
Okay.
And so you just find those places where they need to learn and such. I typically like to go ahead and have managers create a learning plan for each person, and so therefore you can see if they've made progress during the year, make towards those plans. Because, you get busy with trying to write actual code and whatever else. You forget that you also need to train, you also need to focus on such. And so having a plan forces you to go back, we need to focus on that. Yeah, we need to do that. So, all right, really favor of having people mentor, having someone assigned to help them answer the questions. It's sometimes intimidating for a new employee to go to their boss and say, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing, whatever else. But having a mentor who's there, that's job is to help them, guide them, move them forward and such. And give them a practical experience as soon as possible. Have them writing some code that actually gets deployed, even if it's a small change, if it's a small fix in something. get it published, get it out to the web as soon as possible. So you have the feeling of, yes, I can do it. Yes, I can move things forward. And
incremental wins.
It's not that scared.
Okay, so what's the process like of cultivating the mentors? How do you guys approach that?
Yeah, well, you definitely choose the ones wwho have got the right personality types. And so it's people who have a lot of patience. It's got to be someone who can willing to go ahead and sit next to them, answer the same questions multiple times if necessary.
Yes.
Yeah. And someone who we can respect their coding. If they don't write good code, then you don't want them being mentoring the next generation and such. Yeah. And so it's kind of a combination of technical skills, but actually more soft skills.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, very cool. And do you get a lot of buy-in from management on the time that a mentor and a junior dev will spend away from actual work, quote unquote? What's that
like? The good
like?
companies,
how do you navigate
yes. That? The good places, yes. However, I would recommend if a manager knows that the upper company doesn't really respect that and such, you don't need to inform of those details.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever you need to do to onboard someone effectively, that's your job. You're the manager. You're responsible for making sure that person grows. They don't have a right to tell you not to spend time onboarding them.
I really like that approach. Yeah. I mean, you're taking 100% responsibility for getting the actual final product, but part of that is getting a person actually comfortable and up to speed and able to contribute.
As a manager, your job is to make your employees effective, essentially. You serve them, not the other way around.
That's a great point of view. Yeah. I like that. That point of view is, I've seen successful people have it, people I admire, but it isn't as common as it should be.
Agreed.
How long has it been since you were working developer, or do you still do some coding?
Gosh. I still play with code, but my real long actual development, I was back at WebMD years. Yeah. So it's been 10 years or so, I guess.
Do you miss it?
Oh gosh, yes.
I know. Right?
That's the reason why I still code some on the side, because I just like the skills. And I like the learning and learning new technologies. I get jealous of my guys sometimes because I feel sometimes I'm in meetings and dealing with personality issues and whatever else and such. And sometimes it's nice just to sit in a room and just code
exactly
for an hour. So,
the code doesn't have an attitude problem.
Yeah.
I mean, you might think it does sometimes when it's not working. You take it personally when the code you wrote doesn't work,
Actually, one of my favorite things about my developers is typically I find them to be very collaborative, and they're very willing to help me learn as well. And so that's great.
That's great. Absolutely. Yeah. To be, obviously, you were in that executive role now, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not going to be the one diving down into the code. But the better you understand that, the better you can be able to.
You still need to be familiar with it. You still need to understand at a functional level how it works and what your team can do, essentially.
Yeah.
So hey, if you don't know what language they're coding in and such, you better learn it. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to be able to understand what's possible.
Absolutely.
So.
I want to ask you to go back on the Wayback Machine to like when you first came out of school and had those first couple technology roles. What was that experience like for you, coming from the strong computer science background? But I'm assuming here, and if I'm wrong, just tell me. Maybe the program is different, but not as much practical knowledge of the current tool set. How did you navigate that, and what was it like?
Well, for one thing, I had to go ahead and learn C++ mostly on my own. At that time, they were not teaching C++ as a standard part of the curriculum at OSU. That's changed since then. But so I had to pick up on that myself.
How was that?
Oh, easy. I mean, algebraic languages are very, they all follow same patterns and whatever else. So languages are great. I can pick up those pretty fast. But it would have been more helpful, though, to have had a mentor or to have someone to kind of help guide and such along those lines. And when I got into the company I worked for first, they put me in an office, actually, strangely enough.
Your own office?
You got it. Now go do. Well,
do what?
Do what? How?
Oh, no.
And such. Yeah. So that's the reason why I feel so strongly about onboarding is because I didn't really get that so much. And so I had to kind of learn a lot about myself along the ways. And then people would answer questions if I went and asked them and whatever else. But no one was guiding me through it. I was trying to figure out what to do and what my job was mostly by myself.
On top of feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to encounter 9 different things today I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
What was the first time you saw a really well put together onboarding process?
I don't know if I've ever seen a really good one, to be honest. I created one at WebMD, and I thought it was pretty darn good. And then my guys helped me make it even better, which was awesome.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great to have the last person hired be responsible for telling us where the deficiencies are, where should we add more and such. And that makes it their first jobs. And so... But when it came to non-technical things, Cambia did a great job of onboarding about Cambia and the company overall and such. Yeah. And so that was a pretty good one. Melatoad actually has a pretty decent allure as well too, and such, and bringing people on. And they do a lot better mentoring and such. So I'd say.
I'm really glad to hear that, and glad that that's a focus. The mentorship, the experience for a junior developer. I guess my point of view is that we don't have enough talent as it is in the industry, and we live to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we're at our best, I think, when we're helping other people. So to find that that's a caused environment, like the culture or environment in a company is always caused. If it's horrible, that's being done on purpose, But if it's really, really nice, well, that is also being done on purpose, and that takes a high degree of caring and willingness to look at the other person's point of view. And it sounds like that's part of how you like to treat people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely, if you invest in people, they'll return with for you, too.
Absolutely.
So,
Have you been watching or, like, off to the side, been dimly aware at all of the rise of software developer boot camps? Has this...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially with Melatoad. Because we have a lot of feeder programs go into Melatoad, actually, at the time.
What was the initial impression when you first heard about them?
Way back when I first heard back when I was at WebMD early on years and such, I was a little more skeptical of them and such because, I've been through a 4-year program. I was very into theory and computation, all of this stuff and such, and whatever else. I was a little bit more concerned about would the individuals be able to achieve, and shockingly, the answer was yes. They were able to go ahead and succeed. Now, there definitely are some definite strengths one way or the other and such. I mean, so for most of the application working that you're doing, which is mostly front-end working and such, maybe not as much performance concern.
Yes.
I won't say not performance concern. I should say in terms of real complexity in terms of making things performance and such, whatever else. A lot of that worked really well and such, and I'd say some of that has come more theory and computation might be better at getting some of the more efficiency back end type of stuff working and such. But I mean, there's positives in both. I've found developers who can work well in one area and one work in another area. I think it just depends on the individual.
Okay.
So yeah.
What kind of advice would you have for a person who had that boot camp background arriving into the workplace?
Like I said, concentrate on understanding the job description, what's important at the company and such. If there is a situation where you don't know something and such, like if they start about O notation, for example, and they would cover O notation for some reason, then just ask. I mean, just guys are willing to teach anything to learn and such. There's always people that know something that you don't know and such, and so you can learn from everybody. So don't be afraid to say that I don't know that area, but I can learn it. So
my experience with technology professionals is with certain very, very rare exceptions, and they don't last very long. They completely know that they don't know everything. They don't expect anybody else to know everything. It's completely real that a person wouldn't, and that you're constantly going to have to ask for help or advice or a pointer or an explanation.
And realize that your individual background could be very positive for the company and such. I had a really good security person that works for WebMD and such. His background was actually English. He just put that on the side, and he grew up in technology and knew it very well. Now he's a CIO over at Cambia.
Wow.
So I was trying to say our CTO, CEO.
Yeah, that's great.
That's funny. So it just depends. It's really the individual and their drive.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
When you're sitting down to help somebody, what are the chief obstacles you find that get in the way of like really being able to make a difference in helping someone in their career or on their job or that kind of thing? What gets in the way?
Ego sometimes gets in their way. So if they're not willing to take advice, if they're not willing to learn to do things differently necessarily and such, if they're not willing to be flexible, those are things that can get in their way. If they only concentrate on their hard skills, if they think it's only about coding skills and such, if they're not understanding that, look, it's not just about your success, it's about the team's success. So if you're doing what you think is great, yet the team is suffering from your experience, then you're not going to be viewed as a great developer, basically. It's about the team succeeding at being the objective of the company.
It's a hard jump for some people to make, isn't it? It
is, especially when you switch over to management. It's a real psychological barrier, because all of a sudden now it's really nothing about your individual contribution whatsoever. Now it's all about making these people as effective as they possibly can be. So a lot of people that go into management go out of it because it's not a good match.
It's a different beast, and especially for the guys like you and me that grew up with that real strong technical nerd kind of like the computer only operates off of binary yes and no, and then you deal with people, and people they can be wiggly.
Definitely. But I think what's more a problem is typically the developers. We get most of our reward from seeing it work, seeing it run, seeing it wherever else. And so if you're in management, all of a sudden now you've got to have that same feeling from your team succeeding and such, but it's not your code necessarily. Right. And so it's like, kind of wish it was.
I miss that as well. You talked about just doing some coding off to the side and everything, and even now thankfully, my position here is primarily curriculum development and making sure that what we're teaching is reflective of a combination of the fundamentals and what's really in use out there that people can be able to get a job right away and be able to work and be able to contribute right off the bat. So, darn it, that means I have to stay up to date on the current trends and technology, which doesn't break my heart at all. But it is different than actually working on a real live project. We were doing that tour earlier, and I showed you where we have our live project people do that section of the curriculum. There's no substitute for that.
There isn't.
Like, it's 2:00 in the morning and this thing isn't fixed, and you're responsible to show it in the morning.
Absolutely. And then, unfortunately, education cannot teach you that. You have to be part of a real experience to get that knowledge and such. And that's part of the reason why developers, when they first come out of a program like yours, or they're not as valuable in those first years, because we really were more investing in them more so than we're getting out of them.
Absolutely.
But after doing this for a year, damn, they're very valuable.
Oh,
yeah. That's kind of the sweet spot, that year to the next 7 years.
I want to validate what you do in terms of having a focus on onboarding, because if you remove that initial barrier of just orientation to the environment that you're working in as a new developer, I mean, they've already got enough barriers.
Yep.
They're already like, man, this is my first or second job, and they're going to throw me 9 different technologies that I don't know how to do, and I'm going to be burning the midnight oil just on that alone. And I don't know how the development environment interacts with the QA environment, interacts with user acceptance testing, and interacts with prod or operations, and I don't know how to connect to my different servers and what the servers are. Like the orientation on company culture and the actual technology setup and the technology stack they're operating in and getting their development environment up, all that just they start to stabilize and orient.
Absolutely.
And if they're left to do that on their own, like you will with a senior developer, oh, come on. So I really appreciate the fact that that'll be a focus that you have where you work. If we turn out graduates that know that is a key part of how to make a working software developer team effective, then they'll look for it when they are interviewing places. And as they get more and more able, if it isn't there, like you, they'll help create it.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I love about what you talked about your program here and such. That idea of having a real project, that someone really is going to use and such, and knowing it from the inception to the maintenance part of it is really important. And they'll give them the confidence, and they'll know what to look for, and they'll know to look for a real development shops that will take advantage of those skills. Sometimes some people will go into a shop that doesn't follow those good practices and such, and they won't know better that there's something
right, absolutely. They won't,
yeah.
It's like the first time you hear about Agile, and then you see it implemented, and that first time you're like, I guess that must be Agile, and then you go to a different shop, and like, that's not what they were doing at the first place, but they're calling that Agile. And only after a while do you start to realize Agile means 19 different things to 19 different people.
Absolutely.
But if you knew that going in, then you'd be evaluating that first experience of Agile a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I just want to say, by the way, that this conversation just helped me a bit. Like it made me realize that on that live project portion of our program, that we might be able to do a bit more in terms of that orientation step, like and stress the fact that in an ideal world, that's something you would be serviced by or given or helped with when you arrive. And while you may not find it every place, just think of it and maybe make them in the future. It would put that hat on people and know that it is an ideal way to operate.
Something they can do is at least ask for a mentor. If they're on an official mentorship program, a manager can't really would have ever objected to saying, "Oh, you really want someone to kind of mentor with you? Well, sure, I can probably find you an architect that's got some time and work with you." So yeah,
that's excellent. Wow. Well, thank you for sitting down with me. I mean, obviously, we both live and breathe, tech, but underneath all of that. What I look for in people, what I really admire is a sincere desire to help.
Yes.
And to look beyond themselves. And 10 different times in this conversation, you expressed that's part of who you are. So I really admire it, and I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you much.
Hi, this is Jack Stanley again, co-founder of the Tech Academy. I'd like to leave you with a suggestion. We call this Jack's Random Tips. Today's tip is, one of the most common things you hear when you study about successful people is risk. Whether we like it or not, taking risks is a necessary component of being successful. It requires some degree of bravery even just to put your product out there into the world, especially in today's society where, thanks to the internet and technology, everything is reviewed and judged by society. When we put our work out there for the world to see, we are opening ourselves up for potential criticism and attack. Maybe it could be said that if you haven't upset someone somewhere, and if you don't have at least one hater, you're probably not doing enough. Think about it. According to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs that start businesses fail within the first year and a half. So knowing that, it would take guts to start a business, right? Now, there is a difference between thick-skulled stupidity and bravery. You must be brave about something that is right and has the potential to succeed. Taking risk on a terrible idea no one would ever pay money for will result in a failure. Risk embraces many factors and doesn't only apply to starting a business. Interviewing for a position that you're uncertain about getting, asking out your crush, publishing your first website, all these things take guts. The worst thing that can happen is you're rejected. But here's the question. What's the best thing that could happen? And again, if you are interested in enrolling in our Software Developer Bootcamp, please visit our website, learncodinganywhere.com.